Spoiler warning. This podcast contains spoilers for Lights Out and Caught Up, the first two books of the Into Darkness series by Navessa Allen. There is mention of Game On, the third book in the series, but no explicit spoilers. This episode focuses on our thoughts and analysis of Caught Up by Navessa Allen. This is the second episode in our three-part ramp-up to the release of Game On March 31st. Content warning. This episode contains nuanced discussion of dark romantic themes, explicit sexual content, violence, and sex work. Assume that if something is in the book, you might hear us talk about it here.
All right, Christine, let's talk about Caught Up.
Hell yeah.
Book 2. We went so overboard on book 1, we just had to go in for a second round. This book means a lot to me, just in terms of like the sex work advocacy. Though there is the romance and there is the relationship, and the book is predominantly about that, you are also getting just a beautiful reclamation of feminine power. And I think that's just gorgeous. And I love Lauren.
Yeah, no, she's great. And I think that this book it's in the same world as Lights Out, and it's with the characters that were, the male main character introduced to us in book 1. But I do think that it is different from book 1 in a lot of ways, but I still love it. Some people, when this book first came out, were kind of like, oh, this is different. This isn't like more of the same. Like, it's kind of like the lizard
Yeah.
meme. Like, give me more of what I already like. The same like kind of threads do carry through, and like, we talked about the setting at the end of the last episode. Like, the setting is the same, and that really gets rolled up into the plot of this book, because you have like the mob and the club and like all, and the neighborhood kind of drama, and it's like that is all the stage is set for that in Lights Out, but the actual like story and itself is different. And so people that were like looking for more of the same, it's not that, but it like builds off of it. And I really love that.
In the last episode, I kind of touched on the fact that the humor is placed in a different area in the book. And so it's more situated between Lauren and her roommates rather than Nico and Lauren. So I think that kind of lends to what you're saying about how people went into it hearing the inner monologue of the goofiest stalker there ever was.
Yeah.
And now they're entering something a little bit deeper, a little bit more serious.
Yeah, going from Josh to Nico is a big leap. And I think that like Teddy Hamilton also as a narrator has that like much more like kind of like seriously, like, I don't know, he'll forever be the voice of Zayden Ryerson to me, just because that was like my first intro to Teddy Hamilton. Jacob Morgan does bring that kind of like goofball side of things to the character, whereas that like Teddy Hamilton voice always voices characters that are like very serious. It's not that he can't be funny. I've heard him be funny before, but that's just not what's going on here.
I remember I was telling you I had just listened to a Lauren Blakely book that was narrated by Teddy and Samantha Brentmore, and finished it and immediately started listening to Caught Up. He's a softer, more sunshine type character in the Lauren Blakely book. And then going from that into him as Nico, I was just like, ooh, this boy has range. Like, you can really see the difference. And I thought that was super cool.
I'm thinking about it, and I guess the last thing that I listened to that was a Teddy Hamilton book was probably the Jasmine Moss, like, Psycho Shifters books. And so very, very, like, very gruff, mean character there, too.
So we need to talk about Lauren, who was voiced by Casey Hollowell. Casey is incredible. She is so talented, right? She has 2 hilarious roommates, and I want to talk about Navessa's choice to have a third voice actor. We have the talented Jason June, who is the voice actor for Ryan, a non-binary character in the book. And the fact that Navessa had made the decision to have 3 actors instead of 2, I think lends to the inclusivity that she is, trying to capture within the book, and does capture so beautifully. Oftentimes you see, let's be real, you see these kind of things feel a little performative, right? You have a non-binary character mentioned. There'll be one line, Rebecca Yaros, there'll be one line that says their name, it'll say, and they had bright purple hair, and then they're never mentioned, for the rest of the book. So we kind of see, we see that happen often. And it's really nice to have a character that just is who they are. This is who they are. Nothing is explained. We don't have to go in and be like, oh, this is a non-binary person and this is what that means. No, they are just a really cool individual. I love that they're always blushing. I think that's honestly so cute. They always are like scarlet red. Even though their job is literally filming Lauren and getting all of these angles, right? They're so innocent and funny, and they get embarrassed so easily. And I think that that's just adorable. Let's talk about the third roommate.
Taylor. She's also very like open-hearted and goofy. She's got a fun partner, and she is like cheerleading all the way, and then you find out, like, you get like a little snippet of like what her past is like, right? Where with her story, where she's adopted and grew up in conservative, like, purity culture type of environment, how stressful that was. But she has all this joy here with their little 3 people household. And I also want to just like jump a little bit here to Lauren's queerness, where this is another thing where it's not like spelled out. It's just kind of like lived. She just is in the club, talking about people in the club who she's interested in hooking up with, who she's hooked up with in the past. And it's, her identity isn't like spelled out, but you know that she is a queer person. And that's like, you cough, Rebecca Yarros coughed, I'm gonna cough, Sarah J. Maas cough, where there is that criticism, right, of it's like, don't tell me, just show me. Like, we're being shown here. These are not just like, oh, I'm gonna like label this character with this identity, like, for points or performance.
Lauren is,
it's like, they're living it.
She sees scenes in the club and she's like, yeah, I'm down to clown. I'm turned on. Let's go, And it's so positive, and you don't even have to think about it. She's not even thinking about it, so we're not thinking about it as readers. It's natural. It's beautiful.
I think with Lauren and Allie that I think carries through this series, that is a theme, and I hope to see in Game On too, is she is another female main character who like doesn't make herself smaller to suit the people around her in any way. And that's actually, it's interesting because that's actually part of her damage, the things that her formative experience that she had with Nico, where she then kind of like leaned into it and like doesn't give people second chances, like doesn't take any crap from anybody. What you see is what you get. And Nico is able to just like love every aspect of her.
The yearning in this book is so real. Oh my gosh. He's a yearner and I live for it. I actually want to go back and set the stage just for a moment so we can chat about the main star of the show, where we're spending the most time. The setting of the book is going to be the sex club, right? So we spend a lot of time in Velvet, and right from the get-go, we enter into this new world, something that we haven't explored whatsoever in Lights Out. And it's kind of like an elevated experience. We've spoken about kinks, and we've spoken about, different desires and fun times that Allie and Josh had, but this is taking that to the next level. And so entering into something like this, it's very important for the reader to feel safe and to feel like it is established. Navessa does such an incredible job of that. You enter this space, you feel safe to explore, you feel welcome.
I think that like entering into the like sex club world with the character Nico, where he is kind of a fish out of water. Like, he has been engaging with Lauren online, like through her cam girl work. He likes her and he's aware, but he's not been in this environment before. And what's really awesome about the way Navessa presents it is he doesn't walk in the door like and be put off. He's uncomfortable because it's new. He's not uncomfortable because he's judging anyone there. And I think that it's a very cool way to have it presented, not as it's okay to be intimidated, it's okay to be uncomfortable in a new situation, but it lives with him. It's about him, and he's like, nobody here's hurting anybody, nobody here's bothering anybody.
Exactly.
I'm like,
Judgment-free.
let me sit with my little bit of discomfort here and think about it, and then he like learns something that actually becomes a really great part of his life.
What makes this book incredible is the fact that it is a true exploration with zero judgment involved, except for cannibalism.
Yeah,
Zero
we judge
judgment
that.
involved.
Which is actually like a
We
very
judge
meta
that.
joke, right? It's like a callback to
Yeah,
book
right.
one.
I know, it really is. Yeah. You go into the book with the same exploratory attitude as Nico, or you should, and you're going to get the most out of your experience going in
Hmm.
with an open mind, just as Nico
Yeah.
has gone in with an open mind. I think it's important to also note how respectfully he does enter into her life, albeit a little, shifty. He's so respectful about the way he interacts with her. It's always professional. He's never taking advantage of her. He is stalking her a little bit, but it's all above board.
She doesn't know who he is, and they have a history, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
there's a a question there of like whether she has the whole like picture or not, and we learn more about that as time goes on, and she becomes okay with it, remembering their like interactions even before she knew it was him, like fondly, and is into it, is because he really does respect her work. It's really another just way that this character of Nico very much could be put off by these things or something, and he's not, and that's this like sex positive kind of environment that Navessa creates in the books. The only question we have here about the way he engages with her while she's doing her cam work is that they do have this past, right? So they have this
Mm-hmm.
past relationship where there's a miscommunication going on. She feels abandoned by him when he thinks he's protecting her. The fan fiction of it all is just a very fun little tidbit, I think, for like fan fiction people. I loved that that was one of her like core personality traits, even going back to when she was young, is that she was involved in the fan fiction community, and people shaming her for it really reinforced the idea that she needs to be confident and follow what she likes. She didn't like retreat. She didn't get smaller. She just said like, screw you guys, I'm going to show up authentically, and this is authentically who I am. And they make it very clear
Exactly.
throughout the book that this is work, doing this work is her choice. She enjoys it.
Mm-hmm.
She loves it. She's passionate about it.
She
And
is.
it's something that she chooses.
She never wavers on her boundaries whatsoever, and she is the biggest advocate for herself. Probably one of the biggest advocates for herself in all of the FMCs that I've read. She is so strong in her beliefs, and the work she does for the people in her life that are also within this community is so incredible.
That's one of the sweet things that Nico does is behind the scenes. He's like
Mm-hmm.
scary, intimidating politicians, but it's actually like really sweet. It's one of those
Mm-hmm.
classic Navessa Allen contrasty moments. But that's another thing that's really great about this character. The sex work of it all is presented as morally neutral, as it should be. And
Yes,
she does have a strong moral compass. And
she
if you are a
does.
person who is shamey about sex, that's confusing because she is a
Mm-hmm.
sex worker, and that is
Exactly.
like, ooh, scary. But it's not presented that
Mm-hmm.
way. She is
Mm-hmm.
very against the violent things that Nico has
Mm-hmm.
done.
She is.
She's
Yeah.
very anti murder. That's one of the ways that she stands apart, that Allie's pro murder, right? But that's one of the ways that she kind of stands apart from. Well, Allie, I guess, is very anti mafia activity in general too, right? But Allie and Josh are together versus a problem. Lauren and
Mm-hmm.
Nico are together versus their baggage, like, and they're kind of versus each other, right? It's
Mm.
like they're trying to
Mm-hmm.
get on the same page. They're trying to like become the people who they need to be in order to be together.
Mm.
There is that attraction, and that's that they are drawn to each other. The plot isn't as like action packed either, but that
Mm-hmm.
actually just opens it up for the characters to be more nuanced, and their dynamic is the plot
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
how they
It
come to be the people
is.
who they need to be together. One of my favorite things in a book is when the female or the male main character, but it's usually the female main character because these books are written for women to mostly be able to relate to. But when the one of the characters is like called out as being weird or annoying or something, but it's not an issue, right? I like
Mm-hmm.
love that because I think a huge part of my personal journey, something I work on a lot, like in my job, is like helping people be authentic. And I wrote this down, it's probably loosely quoted, right? But Nico says something like, the thing about weirdos like Lauren is you never know how far they're going to take the bit. And he just calls it out like, she's a weirdo. She's weird.
Mm-hmm.
but that's not a problem. It's just objectively true that she is a weirdo. And also he's super into it. And
He clocks it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love
Mm-hmm.
that in a book because it's like, yeah, these people are showing up authentically and they're being loved for who they actually are.
He's just so real and he's so straightforward about everyone. Like
Mhm.
when he goes to Josh and he's like, I hate your roommate. Your roommate sucks. Your roommate is
Yeah.
so annoying.
Josh is a goofball compared to Nico as like a serious black cat kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Really comes across in this book because they like made friends and they spend time together in this book, and like from the outside, whew, Josh and Allie are insufferable. Like when you're inside with them, we like love them, and from the outside, like I love their love, but also Nico is like very eye rolly about it. It's so much, and it makes Josh out to be even more of like a goober than like you
Right?
think he is. So this book's Animal, the goofball dog who also brings a lot of humor to the situation. There is a scene, right? There's like that stereotypical like microtrope scene of where like the Tommy boyfriend is like good with the dog, like the dog obeys that him. Dog just like
Yeah, their
complies.
first introduction, he has that stern look on his face and he just tells the dog to sit and immediately. Like, but the way Navessa wrote it as well, he did it in a domineering way, but he didn't do it in a mean way. So the dog is just sitting there and kind of thumping its tail, just waiting waiting to be able
Yeah.
to come and jump. And then he's
Yes.
like, "Okay, come here." And then the dog's like, "Wah!" And that's so real. Like my dogs would do that. They would do the second part. They wouldn't sit though. So,
Mhm.
fantasy
But
there.
I feel like that's like a signal in like a romance novel that somebody's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
like sexually dominant, is that like the dog just listens to them because they have some kind of
Just
innate
listen.
like dominance like trait or something. I
Mm-hmm.
always think that's entertaining. We're just talking about like Nico's quirks, right? Him getting to know Josh and Allie and getting closer to them, which like kind of gives him the strength to be in opposition to his family because
Hmm.
Josh figured out how to get out from under the mob
Mm-hmm.
guy, and they're kind of then like helping pull Nico out too with like Josh's
Yes.
intimidating factor.
And something that you don't see as much in the first book that you really see in the second book is with these well specifically with the one family dinner, but with the family dinners in general, you see the old gen and new gen, and you see the millennials here who have been raised by a different generation. They've been raised by a different
Yeah.
generation and they are not taking any shit. Allie and Lauren have come in, well, specifically Lauren, but Allie is just like, absolutely not. Lauren is just
Mhm.
like, are you kidding me? They are not putting up with anything. They're like, this is
Yeah.
changing. There's nothing that you can do. We are adults. Try me.
That's a thing that I'm like looking forward to her and Allie like being a good matched pair in that way. Like
Yes, I agree. I want to see more of their relationship develop, and I wonder how our third FMC is going to fit into their dynamic.
something that I'm really interested in is the relationship with Nico's mom and dad,
Nico's
their
parents.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in that because I think that there's, a really cool opening for like a really interesting story. Like she was
Mm-hmm.
making bombs, she was a bomb maker for like the IRA or whatever. Like that is like I'm just like tell me more about that. I want to know more of
Mm-hmm.
her story. And they're like a Romeo and Juliet situation, right? Like this is all
Mm-hmm.
like teased out over the course of the two books. Their families didn't want them together, and like it's funny how that kind of echoes like Lauren and Nico Jr. and
Mm-hmm.
how nobody like can learn a lesson or like break a cycle. I want more of that. I love the idea that he is like awful except he's obsessed with his wife. I want to like
Mm-hmm.
I want to know more.
She does not take any shit. She is scolding him 100%. You see the hierarchy of the relationship because it is like more of an old fashioned relationship. So you see that in her relationship she doesn't necessarily have the upper hand. She doesn't have like the power, right? But she harnesses what she has and totally throws it back.
I also would argue that she kind of makes an opening, like makes like she walks so that Allie can run and so that Lauren can run, right?
Yes.
Because
Mm-hmm.
she is already given it back to Nico Sr. Like his control, that
Mm-hmm.
where his power over the family cracks first is the fact that she doesn't really she kind of like is eye rolly and lets him get away with a lot, but she's she's given it back to him, and she's not just
She is.
unconditionally supportive of him. And so it's like there's her kind of breaking away in a little way, and then Allie breaking away in a big way. And then what's like Nico attracted to in a partner? Like Nico is looking at a partner who is strong-willed, independent, knows who she is, very similar to his mom. He's like, this is what women are like to him. That's the kind of woman he grew up around. And
Exactly.
I like love seeing that trickle down through the generations. I was able to re-listen to this book this week to get ready to have this conversation, and I forgot how much interaction there was between Lauren and Nico and Allie and Josh. And like, aside from like the fun moments where like Josh is like giving Nico advice on like how to be a good stalker boyfriend or whatever. They're like watching sports, and he's like, well, you gotta, gotta be truthful with her. It's like, okay, dude.
Yeah, because you did that.
But the idea that like they take that family dinner, and that's the epilogue. They take that family dinner and they make it their own, and they make it into a thing that they look forward to and that they want to continue a tradition. But they leave behind controlling kind of, in the biz we would call Nico Sr. an emotionally immature parent. Like they leave him behind.
To what you're saying, the found family aspect of Caught Up is so much stronger than I think we initially see in Lights Out. Lights Out is about the three of them, their mini family. And then when we get into Caught Up, we have all of these additional people that are supporting and loving Lauren. And you also have this new family dynamic that Lauren and Allie are creating with their partners.
By the three of them, she means Josh, Allie, and Fred. That's the third.
I do.
I love that, like, their happily ever after kind of chapter. Like, we get the epilogue, but like Lauren and Nico's like happily ever after kind of chapter is them doing a scene, like a performance at the club. This isn't a hockey book, right? This isn't like we're gonna get married and have 10 babies. This is what their version of happily ever after is like. And we don't know what'll come next for them. It could be anything.
We don't.
But I really like, I really liked how him fully becoming part of her world in that way, and like thriving with his family.
So
is
hot.
happily ever after.
It's a really gorgeous scene at the end. It's sexy, but it's powerful. It's really powerful. And I feel like it's been building up to this moment the entire book. And I do, as somebody who's, made the conscious decision not to have children, right? It is, for me, sometimes really nice to see a different perspective at the end of the book. The happily ever after doesn't have to include children every single time. It can include other things. Not saying that there's anything wrong with children and having babies and everything, but it is a very prominent trope within the romance book narrative. And so it is nice to have that little change of pace. And Navessa does that very well, and she does that often. And I believe it's intentional, but even if it's not, I appreciate it as a reader.
You start with the engagement party.
Oh, the engagement party. Whose decision was it to have a barbecue?
Nico Sr. doesn't care.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I love how they even say in the book, Josh is staying as far away as he can from the barbecue. And he said he just didn't want everyone else to miss out. And I'm just like, oh boy, but it's your party. And it doesn't matter how close you're standing to it. It's barbecue.
The best thing about the barbecue is that Lauren recognizes Josh from his thirst traps on the internet.
That's right.
It's so good.
It's one of those.
She recognizes his tattoos, and it's like, it's not explicitly spelled out, right? She's just like, those tattoos. Oh. And then when she meets Allie, she knows Allie's like, well, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, social media handle. She's like, oh, you guys. And she knows who they are. And I think that's so funny. It also signals to Lauren that they're like safe people for her, like she goes into that barbecue, not gonna hide anything about herself, not gonna censor who she is, but a little uncomfy, like a little like, oh, are people here going to accept me? And she finds other people that are like not in the same line of work as her, but certainly work that's adjacent to the work that she does.
Yeah.
And she's just like, oh yeah, I can trust them. We meet our two main characters for the next book at the family dinner epilogue scene. So we've got our trusty first two couples from the first two books, and Tyler shows up a few times in this book, but Tyler shows up in all of his douchey glory to their dinner with this just like very cool, very mysterious lady, Stella. And
Yes.
it's so fun to see the setup for Game On come together.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few things that I'm hoping for in Game On.
What are you looking forward to in Game On, Christine?
My secret dream is that we'll see a Josh Alley wedding in Game On.
Yes.
Like,
oh my gosh.
That's my like ultimate dream, that we'll see the whole gang back together, that we'll get some fun family dynamics, Allie being sassy towards the family that's making them have like a traditional wedding or something. I don't know. Like, I'm hoping we get more there, because like we got the engagement and caught up, so it's like it would make sense to get the wedding in Game On. Nico describes Tyler as having a thing about rules and being very loyal. And I feel like that's like very like Dom coded.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that is kind of what I'm hoping for within his character. And it's really set up even in book one that he's really full of himself, right? Yeah. He's really into himself. I think it's going to be a fun readers enemies to lovers experience. It might be an enemies to lover in the book, but also for us.
We don't really know a lot about Stella. Like, we've seen her this one time, so we can't really speculate about her too much. So I feel like we're giving Tyler a lot of attention and her not a lot, but we don't know a lot about her, and I'm excited to find out. But I'm really excited to see how like the outside of Tyler matches the inside of Tyler, because we only ever get the outside of Tyler. We only ever get the blonde, like, fuckboy kind of side of him. We find out he has this whole like secret life. And I'm just excited to see like what else about him we don't really know or understand.
It's coming out so soon. And as we mentioned in the last episode, we did have the opportunity to interview Tara Langella and James Cassidy and talk about their experience narrating Game On. And that was so much fun.
We also can't wait to read Game On and find out if our expectation matches the reality and yap about that.
Have a good day.
Thanks for hanging out with us while we talked all things Into Darkness series. We hope you're as hyped for Game On as we are. Keep listening to our next episode to hear our conversation with Tara Langella and James Cassidy, the narrators for the audiobook of Game On.